What if the greatest secret ever whispered by Jesus was not about heaven after death, but about who you are right now? What if the kingdom of God was never meant to be built of stone, ruled by priests, or guarded by doctrine, but discovered inwardly, in silence, awareness, and direct knowing? Hidden among the banned Gospels, buried in desert sands for nearly 2,000 years, lies a single sentence so explosive that it threatened the very foundation of religious authority. A sentence the early church could not control, could not institutionalize, and therefore could not allow to survive. From the Gospel of Thomas, saying 3, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you and it is outside you." This is not poetry. This is not metaphor alone. This is a declaration of spiritual sovereignty. Because if the kingdom is inside you, no priest stands between you and truth. If it is outside you, then the world itself is sacred, not fallen, not corrupt, not something to escape. And if both are true simultaneously, then salvation is not a transaction. It is an awakening. So why was this teaching excluded from the Bible? Why was the Gospel of Thomas labeled heretical, dangerous, and erased from public awareness for centuries? And more importantly, what happens when you take this saying seriously, not as belief, but as lived experience? In this video, we are not approaching Thomas saying 3 as theology. We are approaching it as technology, a map of consciousness hidden in plain sight. We will explore the ancient mystical traditions that understood this truth long before Christianity, the political and spiritual reasons this knowledge had to be suppressed, and how this single saying dismantles fear-based religion while restoring direct contact with the divine. This is not about rebellion against faith. It is about remembering what faith once was, before it was owned. Stay with me. Because once you see the kingdom, you cannot unsee it. To understand why Thomas saying 3 was hidden, we must step outside the familiar story of Christianity and enter a far older, stranger world. One where spiritual knowledge was experiential, initiatory, and deeply personal. The Gospel of Thomas was not written as a narrative. There is no crucifixion, no resurrection scene, no miracles performed for spectacle. Instead, it is a collection of 114 sayings, logia, attributed to Jesus, presented without explanation, like riddles meant to awaken rather than instruct. This alone made it suspect. The early church did not want seekers, it wanted believers. Discovered in 1945 near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, the Gospel of Thomas was buried alongside other Gnostic texts, scrolls deliberately hidden when church orthodoxy became law. These writings represented a version of Christianity that looked nothing like the institution that would later dominate the Roman world. In this earlier stream, Jesus was not primarily a sacrificial lamb. He was a revealer of gnosis, direct knowing. Gnosticism taught that divine truth is not inherited, mediated, or granted by authority. It is remembered, awakened. And this is where Thomas saying 3 becomes revolutionary. The kingdom is inside you and outside you, echoes teachings far older than Christianity itself. In ancient Egypt, the concept of Ma'at described cosmic order reflected both in the heavens and the human heart. In the Upanishads of India, written centuries before Jesus, we find the declaration, Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. The divine is not elsewhere. It is the ground of your being. Even Plato, whose philosophy shaped Western thought, hinted at this truth. He spoke of anamnesis, knowledge as remembrance. Truth was not taught. It was recollected by the soul. Jesus, in the Gospel of Thomas, stands squarely in this mystical lineage. But this posed an existential threat to the emerging church. By the 4th century, Christianity had fused with Roman political power. Unity, hierarchy, and control became paramount. Spiritual authority had to flow in one direction, from the institution to the individual. Anything suggesting direct access to the divine undermined this structure entirely. If the kingdom is within you, why confess to a priest? If it is outside you, why reject the world as sinful? If knowledge leads to liberation, why obey blindly? Thomas saying 3 removes fear as a control mechanism. There is no promise of future heaven, no threat of eternal punishment, only the challenge of awakening now, and an awakened individual is nearly impossible to rule, so the text was labeled heretical. Gnostic teachers were persecuted. Their writings were burned or buried. What survived became the carefully curated New Testament, a version of Christianity compatible with empire. Yet the irony is profound. The Church claimed to protect the kingdom of God, while suppressing the very teaching that told humanity where the kingdom truly is. Hidden, not because it was false, but because it was too true. Let us begin with the most unsettling part of Thomas saying 3, the part that dismantles centuries of spiritual dependency. The kingdom is inside you. This is not a comforting statement. It is a destabilizing one. Because if the kingdom is within you, then ignorance, not sin, is the true problem. And ignorance cannot be absolved by ritual. It can only be dissolved by awareness. In the mystical traditions of the ancient world, the kingdom was never a place. It was a state of consciousness, a shift in perception so radical that reality itself appeared transformed. The world did not change, but the one who perceived it did. Imagine a lamp hidden beneath layers of dust. The light was always there. The task was never to acquire light, but to remove what obscured it. This is why the Gospel of Thomas repeatedly emphasizes knowing, not believing, not obeying, knowing. Jesus says elsewhere in Thomas, "Whoever comes to know themselves will find it." To know oneself in this context is not psychological introspection. It is ontological recognition, the realization of what you are beneath identity, story, memory, and fear. The kingdom within is the observer behind the thoughts, the silent awareness prior to emotion, the stillness beneath the noise. Ancient mystics described this as the divine spark, the pneuma, the inner light. In Jewish mysticism, it appears as the neshama. In Hinduism, the Atman. Different languages, same recognition. But here is the paradox. The moment you try to grasp it, it disappears. The kingdom cannot be possessed. It can only be entered. And entry requires a certain kind of death, the death of the false self. This is why institutional religion found this teaching intolerable. It offered no external markers, no uniforms, no intermediaries, no hierarchy of worth. The peasant and the king stood equal before the inner gate, and this is also why the teaching was easily misunderstood. Over time, the kingdom within was softened into metaphor, symbolized, deferred, reinterpreted as conscience, morality, or vague inspiration. But Thomas leaves no such escape routes. He is precise, provocative. If you do not know what is within you, he warns, what is within you will destroy you. Why such severity? Because when the inner kingdom is ignored, something else takes its place. Fear, compulsion, false authority. The unexamined inner world becomes a breeding ground for shadows projected outward. Empires, wars, dogmas, all born from unconscious minds seeking control. The kingdom within is not passive bliss. It is clarity, responsibility, sovereignty. And this is where the saying deepens. because Jesus does not stop there. He adds something even more destabilizing. And it is outside you. This is where many interpretations collapse. How can the kingdom be both internal and external? Is this contradiction or instruction? To the mystic, it is neither. It is a map. But to read it correctly, we must first unlearn the habit of dividing reality into sacred and profane, inner and outer, spiritual and material. That division itself is the veil. And in the next section, we will cross it. When Jesus says, "And it is outside you," he completes the circuit. This is the part of the teaching that unsettles both religion and modern spirituality. Because while institutions fear the inner kingdom, many seekers fear the outer one. They retreat inward, chasing transcendence, trying to escape the world, as if matter itself were a mistake. But Thomas allows no such escape. The kingdom is not hidden from the world. It is hidden within it. To the Gnostic mind, the tragedy was never embodiment. It was forgetfulness. The world is not fallen because it is physical. It is fallen because it is perceived unconsciously. When awareness is fractured, reality appears fragmented. Sacred here, profane there, God above, humanity below. Thomas saying, 3 collapses this illusion. If the kingdom is outside you, then every encounter becomes a threshold, every face a mirror, every moment a potential revelation. This is why Jesus warns, when you know yourselves, you will realize that you are the children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty. Poverty here does not mean lack of possessions. It means lack of perception. The kingdom outside you is not a reward waiting at the end of time. It is the living pattern of intelligence expressing itself through nature, relationships, synchronicity, and form. The same consciousness that looks through your eyes also burns in the sun and moves the tides. Ancient Hermetic teachings called this as above, so below. Not as metaphor, but as lived reality. This is why the early church had to suppress this idea. Because once the world itself is recognized as sacred, control through guilt collapses. If the kingdom is outside you, then the earth is not merely a testing ground. It is a sanctuary. If the kingdom is outside you, then authority does not descend from heaven through institutions. It emerges through alignment with truth. And this introduces a dangerous freedom. Because the moment you see the world as infused with the same intelligence that lives within you, you stop outsourcing meaning. You stop waiting for permission. You stop accepting interpretations handed down by those who claim exclusive access to God. This is also where many misconceptions arise. Some assume this teaching promotes solipsism. It's all in my head. Others reduce it to vague pantheism. Everything is God. Thomas teaches neither. The kingdom is not imagination, and it is not indiscriminate. It is recognized through clarity, discernment, and inner alignment. When the inner kingdom is awakened, the outer kingdom becomes legible. Patterns emerge. Meaning reveals itself. But without the inner awakening, the outer world appears chaotic, hostile, meaningless. And in that confusion, people beg for rulers, rules, and rigid beliefs to anchor them. This is the real reason this saying was dangerous. It did not need churches. It did not need empires. It did not even need scriptures. It needed eyes that could see. And this is why Jesus adds a final warning in the same saying. When you come to know yourselves, you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. Not someday, not after death, now. The kingdom is not coming. It is not arriving. It is not being built. It is being recognized. And once recognized, it cannot be unrecognized. The question is no longer where the kingdom is. The question is whether you are willing to see it. Ancient teachings were never meant to be admired from a distance. They were designed to reconfigure perception. Thomas saying 3 is not understood through agreement. It is understood through practice. So how do you begin to experience the kingdom inside you and outside you without retreating to a monastery or adopting dogma? The first step is deceptively simple: silence. Not the absence of noise, but the suspension of constant interpretation. Set aside 10 minutes a day. Sit comfortably. Do not meditate on anything. Do not visualize. Do not repeat mantras. Simply notice the stream of thought without following it. Watch how the mind narrates reality. Labels, judgments, stories. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is the sound of the false self losing control. Beneath the commentary, something else emerges. Quiet, aware, unthreatened. This is not an altered state. It is your baseline state, obscured by habit. This is the doorway to the inner kingdom. The second practice is relational awareness. As you move through your day, treat every interaction as a mirror. Notice your reactions before the words: irritation, attraction, defensiveness. These are not caused by others. They reveal unintegrated aspects within you. Instead of resisting them, ask silently, "What is this showing me?" This transforms daily life into initiation. The kingdom outside you begins to reveal itself through patterns rather than events. Coincidences gain texture. Encounters feel charged with meaning, not because the world has changed, but because perception has sharpened. The third practice is deprogramming sacred separation. Most people unconsciously divide their lives: spiritual time and ordinary time, sacred places and mundane places. This division blinds you. Choose one daily activity: washing dishes, walking, commuting, and perform it with total presence. No mental escape, no future projection, no spiritual overlay, just attention. This collapses the false boundary between inner and outer. Over time, you will notice something unsettling. The same stillness you touch in meditation is present everywhere. The kingdom was never absent. The greatest obstacle you will face is expectation. Many seekers abandon this path because it does not produce fireworks. No visions, no voices, no instant bliss. But Thomas never promised comfort. He promised truth. Another pitfall is spiritual identity. The moment you think "I am awakened," the gate closes. The kingdom does not belong to the self-image. It reveals itself through humility, not superiority. And finally, there is fear. Because when you stop outsourcing authority, responsibility returns. You can no longer blame doctrine, leaders, or fate. Clarity demands integrity. But this is the price of sovereignty. Living from this awareness does not remove you from the world. It roots you more deeply in it. Decisions become simpler. Reactions soften. Fear loses its grip. Not because life becomes easy, but because you are no longer divided against yourself. The kingdom does not ask you to escape the world. It asks you to see it clearly. And once you do, nothing remains ordinary. Thomas saying 3 does not offer comfort. It offers responsibility. The kingdom is inside you, and outside you is not a promise of rescue. It is a revelation of proximity. Nothing needs to descend. Nothing needs to arrive. Nothing needs to be earned. What was hidden was never distant, only overlooked. This is why the saying was dangerous. Because once you see that the kingdom is not controlled by institutions, guarded by doctrine, or postponed until death, fear loses its leverage, guilt loses its power, and authority built on separation begins to collapse. The early church did not hide this teaching because it was confusing. They hid it because it was clarifying. It told people they were not spiritually poor, that they were not cut off, that they did not need intermediaries to touch the divine. And it told them something even more unsettling, that the world itself, this world, was not abandoned by God. The kingdom is not elsewhere. It is not later. It is not symbolic. It is the awareness looking through your eyes right now, and the intelligence shaping the world you are moving through. Inside and outside are not two locations. They are one reality, seen without distortion. This is not a belief you adopt. It is a perception you recover. And once recovered, it quietly changes everything. You stop searching compulsively. You stop waiting for permission. You stop fearing existence as a test you might fail. Instead, life becomes participatory, intimate, charged with meaning, not imposed meaning, but revealed meaning. So the final question is not whether the kingdom exists. The question is this: if the kingdom is already here, within you and all around you, what would change if you lived as though that were true? Sit with that. And if this teaching stirred something ancient in you, something familiar yet long forgotten, then explore further. Question deeper. Stay awake. Because secrets only remain hidden until someone is ready to see them.